You drank your milk. You took your calcium pills. You did exactly what you were told to do for decades. So why did your doctor just look at your latest scan and tell you your bones are getting weaker? I am Dr. Harrison. In my practice, I see this exact scenario play out almost every single day. Good health-conscious people over 55 sit in my office, completely bewildered by a diagnosis of osteopenia or osteoporosis. They tell me, but I drink 2 glasses of milk a day. I have for my whole life. How is this happening? Inner Ademors Irinamond. Today, I am going to tell you the truth about why doing everything right hasn't stopped your bone density from dropping. And more importantly, I am going to show you a simple, realistic, kitchen-friendly daily habit using 3 specific pantry seeds to build resilient bones without taking a dozen separate supplements. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments, were you raised on the strict milk makes your bones strong rule like most of my patients were? Tell me your story down below. Let me tell you about a patient of mine. Let's call her Evelyn. Evelyn is a 58-year-old retired teacher living in Dayton, Ohio. She is the definition of diligent. For as long as she can remember, she started her day with cereal and milk and ended it with a glass of milk before bed. When she hit 50, she added a calcium supplement just to be extra safe. She walked a few times a week and felt great. But a few months ago, she came in for her routine DEXA scan, a specialized X-ray that measures bone mineral density. When the results came back, Evelyn was stunned. She had progressive osteopenia, the direct precursor to osteoporosis. Her wrist and hip bones were thinning rapidly. She looked at me, completely frustrated, and said, "Dr. Harrison, am I just genetically doomed? I have literally poured calcium into my body my entire life." Osteopenia and osteoporosis are silent. You don't feel your bones getting thinner. You don't wake up with a warning ache telling you your bone mineral density has dropped by 4%. Most people have no idea their skeleton is compromised until they bump into a counter or trip on a rug and a bone that should have easily handled the impact suddenly snaps. That is the fear that grips so many of my patients. The fear of losing their independence. The fear that a simple slip in the grocery store could lead to a hip replacement and months of grueling rehab. Evelyn confessed to me that after she got her DEXA results, she was terrified to carry her 2-year-old grandson down the stairs. She felt fragile, and feeling fragile when you have spent your whole life trying to be healthy is a terrible, frustrating place to be. When we ran a comprehensive blood panel for Evelyn, the results were fascinating. Evelyn had plenty of calcium in her system. Her body was not starving for the raw material, but she was severely deficient in magnesium and vitamin K2, and that right there is the missing piece that changed everything for her. You see, we have been told a very incomplete story about bone health. For generations, the medical community and the dairy industry pounded one message into our heads. Calcium equals strong bones. It makes sense on the surface. Bones are made of calcium. Therefore, eat more calcium, get more bone. But human biology is rarely that simple. I want you to think about building a brick wall. If you want a strong, sturdy wall to protect your house, what do you need? Bricks, right? So, you order a massive pile of the best quality bricks and have them dumped on your front lawn. If you just leave them there, do they build a wall? No, they just sit there, sinking into the grass, maybe even creating a tripping hazard. To build the wall, you need mortar. You need a mason to place them. You need a blueprint. In your body, calcium is just the brick. It is nothing more than raw building material. When you drink a glass of regular milk, or when you swallow a standard calcium carbonate pill, you are just dumping bricks on the front lawn of your bloodstream. Without the right biological mortar and masons, that calcium does not magically know it belongs inside your skeletal system. In fact, if calcium aimlessly floats around your bloodstream without direction, it can become incredibly dangerous. It starts looking for places to settle. And where does it go? It calcifies in your arteries, increasing your risk of heart disease. It settles into your joints, causing stiffness and pain. It forms stones in your kidneys. To actually get that calcium out of your blood and locked deep into your bone matrix, your body requires a specific team of cofactors, a biological symphony. This team consists of vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium. Standard fluid milk gives you the brick, but it is severely lacking in the mortar. It has calcium, and yes, it is often fortified with a little synthetic vitamin D, but it completely drops the ball on magnesium and vitamin K2. That is why so many people who drink milk their entire lives still end up fracturing their wrists in their 60s. They have all the bricks in the world, but no mortar to hold them together. Let's take a step back and look at standard dairy. Now, I am not here to tell you that dairy is a total lie or that it is toxic. That is the kind of sensationalism you hear from people trying to sell you expensive detox programs. Fermented dairy, like high-quality kefir or traditional yogurt, is actually wonderful for your gut and your health. Many people lack the lactase enzyme to digest regular milk properly, but if you tolerate fermented dairy, keep eating it. The problem is the standard pasteurized, homogenized fluid milk that we were told to drink by the gallon. We were sold a promise that this single beverage was the ultimate shield against aging bones, but the data just does not support it. Studies tracking populations with the highest dairy consumption repeatedly show that they do not have the lowest fracture rates. In some cases, their fracture rates are actually higher than populations that consume very little dairy. How is that possible? Because those other populations are getting the cofactors. They are getting the mortar. Evelyn's story is the perfect example of this paradox. Her body was working exactly as it was programmed to. It absorbed the calcium from her milk and her supplements, but without magnesium to activate the enzymes that metabolize vitamin D, and without vitamin K2 to act as the biological traffic cop directing that calcium away from her arteries and into her bones, her skeletal density kept dropping. Her body was just flushing the excess calcium out, or worse, depositing it in her soft tissues. Once I explained this to Evelyn, the relief washed over her. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't bad genetics. She was just missing the instruction manual for the nutrients she was taking. And this brings us to the most important part of our conversation today. How do we get the mortar? How do we get this biological team of magnesium, D3, and K2, along with highly absorbable calcium, without taking a handful of expensive, isolated supplement pills every morning? The answer isn't in a pharmacy aisle. It is sitting in the baking and bulk aisles of your local grocery store. There are 3 specific pantry seeds that, when prepared correctly, carry this entire biological team naturally. They don't just give you the bricks, they provide the masons, the mortar, and the blueprint all at once. And the best part? You only need small, realistic amounts to see a massive difference. We aren't talking about eating bowls of dry seeds. We are talking about a couple of tablespoons a day of specific, targeted nutrition that actually tells your body how to build bone. In the next few minutes, I am going to reveal exactly what these 3 seeds are. I will explain the fascinating way they work inside your body. And I am going to show you the one simple preparation trick, the secret to unlocking their nutrients, because if you eat them the wrong way, you will flush all their benefits straight down the drain. Let me break down exactly how this biological symphony works inside your body, because once you see this, the way you think about your bones will change forever. We already established that calcium is just the brick. But to get that brick into the wall, you need a highly coordinated team, starting with vitamin D3. Think of vitamin D3 as the heavy wooden door to your bloodstream. Without adequate D3, your intestines are securely locked. You can swallow all the calcium you want, you can drink milk until you are sick to your stomach, but that calcium will simply pass right through your digestive tract and out of your body. D3 unlocks the intestinal door and pulls the calcium inside, but that is only step 1. Here is the part that is almost entirely ignored in standard nutritional advice. Once that calcium enters your bloodstream, it is completely lost. It has no internal GPS. It does not automatically know it belongs in your femur or your wrist. To get it there, you need the traffic cop, and that is vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 activates a very specific protein in your body called osteocalcin. Think of osteocalcin as a biological magnet. Its entire job is to grab the free-floating calcium out of your blood and pull it directly into your bone matrix. Without K2 acting as the traffic cop, that calcium wanders aimlessly. And where does it settle? It calcifies in your arteries, making them stiff and dangerous. It settles in your joints, causing chronic stiffness and pain. If you have ever taken a high-dose calcium pill and noticed your joints aching a few weeks later, or if your doctor has mentioned arterial plaque, you might be feeling the exact effects of calcium without its traffic cop. And finally, we have magnesium, the foreman of this entire operation. Magnesium is absolutely required to convert vitamin D into its active, usable form in the body. If your magnesium levels are low, your vitamin D supplements are essentially blind and useless. Furthermore, magnesium physically stabilizes the crystalline structure of the bone itself. It is the literal mortar holding the calcium bricks together. Let me give you a fascinating real-world example of this symphony in action. For decades, medical researchers studied different populations across Japan, trying to understand their aging patterns. They noticed something incredible in the eastern regions of the country. The women in these specific areas had remarkably low rates of bone fractures as they aged, dramatically lower than women in other parts of Japan and vastly lower than women in the United States. Their overall calcium intake wasn't unusually high, and they certainly weren't drinking large amounts of cow's milk. So what was their secret? It came down to a traditional, everyday food called natto, which is made from fermented soybeans. It turns out that natto is the highest natural food source of vitamin K2 on the planet. Because these women had an absolute abundance of the K2 traffic cop in their daily diet, every single bit of calcium they consumed was perfectly and efficiently directed straight into their skeletons. Their bones stayed dense because the system was working exactly as biology intended. Before we get to the specific foods you can use to replicate this, I want to give you an exact question to ask your doctor at your next physical. Please write this down and bring it with you. Ask them, can we check my vitamin D and magnesium levels, and given my bone health, should I be adding vitamin K2 to my routine to ensure calcium stays out of my arteries? That is a targeted, medically precise conversation that could genuinely change the trajectory of your health. Now, let's talk about the 3 pantry seeds that deliver this exact biological team naturally. These aren't exotic superfoods you have to order from a specialty website. They are sitting in your grocery store right now. The first is sesame, but with a very specific, non-negotiable catch. I am not talking about those processed, white, stripped sesame seeds sprinkled on top of a bakery bun. Those have been stripped of their nutritional power. You want dark, unhulled sesame seeds, or even better, unhulled tahini, which is a roasted sesame paste. In many Mediterranean cultures, tahini is a daily dietary staple, and it provides a massive foundational source of skeletal strength. Just 2 tablespoons of unhulled tahini give you a highly absorbable dose of calcium, plus the exact magnesium required to process it, and the zinc your bone-building cells desperately need to function. It is literally the bricks and the mason delivered in one single spoonful. The second is poppy seeds. These tiny, unassuming black seeds are an absolute structural powerhouse for your skeleton. A single tablespoon carries an incredible payload of calcium, but more importantly, it is loaded with magnesium and phosphorus. Phosphorus is another critical mineral that makes up the actual hard, crystalline complex of your bones. They are physically small, but their nutrient density is staggering. The third is chia seeds. You probably know them for their fiber, or you have seen them in trendy health drinks, but they are fundamentally a bone density superfood. 2 tablespoons of chia deliver a significant amount of calcium and magnesium, along with a massive dose of plant-based omega-3 fatty acids. This is crucial because as we age, our bodies naturally lean toward a state of chronic low-level inflammation. Systemic inflammation is like a wrecking ball to your bones. It actively stimulates cells called osteoclasts, whose entire biological job is to break down and dissolve bone tissue. The omega-3s in chia seeds act like a chemical shield against that wrecking ball, calming the inflammation and protecting the bone you already have, while the minerals help build new tissue. But here is where things get complicated, and where almost everyone makes a massive, silent mistake that ruins all their effort. If you just take raw chia seeds and sprinkle them dry over your morning yogurt, or if you eat dry poppy seeds baked into a piece of toast, you are absorbing almost none of those precious minerals. You are wasting your money and your time. Why? Because nature protects these seeds with a defensive compound called phytic acid, or phytates. Think of phytic acid like a microscopic biological vault. It binds incredibly tightly to the calcium, magnesium, and zinc, locking them up so your human digestive tract cannot access them. You chew and swallow the seeds, but the minerals stay locked inside the vault and pass right through your system, completely unused. To get the actual benefits, you have to break the vault. For chia seeds, the key is moisture and time. You must soak them. Putting them in water, almond milk, or kefir for just a few hours, or ideally overnight in the fridge, activates natural enzymes within the seed that break down and neutralize the phytic acid. When you look in the bowl and see that thick, gelatinous texture form around the chia seeds, that is your visual proof that the vault is open and the minerals are now bioavailable for your bones. For sesame and poppy seeds, the key is physical disruption. You must grind them, or eat them already processed, into a paste like tahini. Your teeth alone simply cannot break down their tough, microscopic outer shells effectively enough to bypass the phytates. Grinding them in a small coffee grinder or food processor exposes that rich, mineral-dense center directly to your digestive acids, allowing your body to finally extract the mortar and the bricks your skeleton is starving for. So, how do we put this into practice? I want to give you the exact kitchen action plan that I give my patients. It is incredibly simple, it takes almost no time, and it costs pennies compared to expensive bone-building supplements. If you choose chia seeds, here is your daily routine. Every evening, take 2 tablespoons of chia seeds and put them in a small glass or jar. Pour in about half a cup of your preferred liquid, water, almond milk, or if you tolerate dairy well, a high-quality fermented kefir. Stir it up, cover it, and put it in the fridge overnight. While you sleep, that liquid is breaking down the phytic acid vault. By morning, you have a thick, mineral-rich pudding. You can add a handful of berries or a sprinkle of cinnamon, and you have just eaten a perfect serving of highly bioavailable calcium, magnesium, and omega-3s. If you prefer sesame, the simplest route is buying a jar of high-quality, dark, unhulled tahini. Do not buy the pale, highly refined stuff. Look for the darker jars where the label specifically says unhulled. Spread 2 tablespoons of that on a piece of whole grain toast in the morning, or stir it into a warm bowl of oatmeal. If poppy seeds are your choice, buy them in bulk, put them in a dedicated coffee grinder, and pulse them for 10 seconds until they form a coarse powder. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons of that freshly ground powder over your meals. It has a wonderful, nutty flavor and instantly upgrades the nutritional profile of whatever you are eating. But I need to share one final, absolutely critical piece of this puzzle. Even if you eat your seeds, and even if your body absorbs every single ounce of that biological mortar and brick, you will still lose bone density if you do not do this one thing. Let me take you out of the kitchen for a moment and look at the astronauts at NASA. These are some of the healthiest, most perfectly nourished human beings on the planet. Their diets are meticulously formulated. Yet, when astronauts spend an extended period in the zero-gravity environment of space, they lose up to 1 to 2% of their bone mass every single month. It is one of the most severe forms of rapid osteoporosis known to medicine. Why does this happen? Because human bones are dynamic, living tissue that responds strictly to demand. In zero gravity, there is no weight, no impact, and no resistance. The body is incredibly efficient. It looks at the skeleton and says, "We aren't lifting anything heavy. We aren't hitting the ground. We don't need this much dense bone anymore. Let's break it down to save energy." So, ser arc in co arntyand. Your body does the exact same thing if you sit in a recliner all day. You can eat all the tahini and soaked chia in the world, but if you do not subject your bones to mechanical impact, your brain will not signal your cells to build new bone. You must pair your new nutritional team with physical demand. I am talking about weight-bearing exercise, walking briskly, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, or doing light resistance training. Even simply standing up from a chair without using your hands, or doing gentle heel drops where you raise up on your toes and drop your heels firmly to the floor to create a slight vibration through your legs. That physical impact is the final signal that tells the osteocalcin traffic cop to get to work. Let's go back to Evelyn, the retired teacher from Ohio we talked about earlier. Once we realized she had the bricks but was missing the mortar, she made a few targeted changes. She stopped relying solely on pasteurized fluid milk. Instead, she started having soaked chia seeds and kefir every morning, and she added unhulled tahini to her afternoon salads. To fix the mechanical impact side of the equation, she started wearing a lightweight 4-pound weighted vest during her morning walks. 1 year later, she came back into my office for her follow-up DEXA scan. We sat down to look at the numbers together. Her bone density had not only stopped dropping, but she had actually stabilized her numbers and showed a slight, statistically significant improvement in the density of her hips. More importantly than the numbers on the page, the fear was gone. She carries her 2-year-old grandson down the stairs now with total confidence. She trusts her body again. Getting older does not mean you have to passively watch your body crumble. Your skeleton is not a static piece of chalk. It is a living, breathing organ that is constantly rebuilding itself. When you give it the right instructions, the right physical demand, and the complete biological team of nutrients, not just the isolated bricks, it will respond. You have so much more control over how you age than you have ever been led to believe. I want you to take control of this, starting tomorrow morning. Which of these are you going to add to your breakfast tomorrow? Comment chia, poppy, or sesame below. I read every single one to see what you choose. If this video opened your eyes to how your body really works, please share it with a friend, a sister, or anyone in your life who has been faithfully drinking their milk but still worrying about their bones. Save this video so you can remember how to prepare your seeds correctly, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more straight-talking, science-backed advice on protecting your independence. I am Dr. Harrison. Stay strong, keep moving, and I will see you in the next video.